evening, everybody, and we're thrilled to be here and to have you here. Thank you all for joining us for celebrating marriage equality here in New York and marriage inequality in Israel. And tonight, in celebrating of Tu B'Av, which is the Jewish Valentine's Day, we, for the third year in a row at the New Israel Fund, are having a wedding this year of Inna and Pavel, and a little more about them in a little bit, which we will be, actually it's probably happening, we're a bit late for it, but it's been happening right now in Tel Aviv, a celebration of their marriage. So we celebrated here in New York, same-sex couples became free to legally marry for the first time, and that's really fantastic and wonderful. And we're hoping to bring that struggle and continue that struggle on the other side of the ocean in Israel. As some of you may know about the New Israel Fund, we're the leading organization committed to equality and democracy in Israel. It's a partnership of Israelis and supportive of Israel worldwide, dedicated to a vision of Israel as both the Jewish homeland and a shared society at peace with itself and its neighbors. So we're one of the major organizations working on the issue of religious pluralism, tolerance, and marriage equality. So right now, Israeli law requires that citizens marry according to the requirements of the religious institution. So there's no civil marriage. So a Jew must marry a Jew, a Muslim must marry a Muslim, a Christian must marry a Christian. If you're a Jew and you want to marry a Christian, no luck. As a matter of fact, if you're a Jew and you want to marry a Jew, that's also problematic, since about 300,000 Israelis are no longer considered to be, or have their Judaism questioned. And so only the ultra-Orthodox chief rabbinate is allowed to marry them. And so in many cases, they're not able to legally wed in Israel, and it creates a lot of different problems. So after 2,000 years in diaspora, and particularly the events of the last 20th century, thousands of Jewish citizens of Israel are either unable to prove that they are Jews, as the rabbinate defines the term. So we've got a lot of Jews in Israel who can't marry. So let's hear for one of them, one of the couples who are actually marrying illegally, if you want, in Israel, from Inna and Pavel.
אני בת 36, הגעתי לארץ לפני 8 שנים מסנט פטרבורג.
שלום, שמי פאבל פוגן, אני בן 37, עליתי ארצה לפני 21 שנה ממוסקבה, וזה הבת שלנו, ניה. תגידי שלום.
אני אזרחית. אני קיבלתי אזרחות ישראלי, אני יהודייה, למרות שלפי ההלכה אני לא יהודייה, אבל אני מרגישה את זה. הסיבה שלא נותנים לנו להתחתן זה, למשל, הבת שלי, היא ישראלית לגמרי, 100%, להקה.
תוצרת הארץ.
תוצרת הארץ. היא 7 שניות. מה זאת אומרת? יש לה סבתא של הסבתא שהיא לא יהודייה. ובגלל זה היא לא יכולה להתחתן כאן. מה שאנחנו הולכים לעשות בנושאים שלנו ב-15 באוגוסט, זה דרך קצת להשתפר. אני חושבת שאני יכולה לשנות משהו. אז אני עושה מה שאני יכולה.
להגיד לעתיד אחר, שלילדה שלנו לא תצטרך לעבור את הסיפור הזה בכלל. שהיא לא תצטרך לחשוב איך היא נוסעת למדינה זרה ומתחתנת שם, בגלל שמישהו ברבנות הראשית לא מכיר ביהדות שלה. אני חושב שיהדות זה משהו שיש לבן אדם בפנים בראש, ולא מישהו קובע ושם עליי תווית כשירות כמו על שק בשר. חוץ מזה שאנחנו אוהבים אחד את השני ורוצים להתחתן, הסיפור הוא לא רק על יהדות שלי או של אינה או משהו אחר. אנחנו חושבים שמדינה צריכה להיות הרבה יותר פלורליסטית, הרבה יותר חופשייה, הרבה יותר דמוקרטית. אנחנו חושבים שכל האזרחים במדינה צריכים להיות שווי זכויות, ובטח לא לקבוע איזשהו דירוג על פי כמות אדם מסוג אחד בבן אדם.
יש אחרים ששואלים, למה אתם עושים את זה שוב? למה כל כך הרבה אנשים, למה באמצע הרחוב, למה? וכולם שואלים על האינטימיות. אני חושבת שהאינטימיות זה משהו בפנים. מה שאנחנו עושים זה אמת.
אנחנו מזמינים את כולם לתוכנה שלנו, זה יהיה אירוע פתוח בגן החשמל בתל אביב, 15 לאוגוסט.
חתונה ישראלית.
חתונה בטקס ישראלי לגמרי, כולם מוזמנים ולא צריך להביא את הצ'קים. תבואו ונשמח ביחד.
So they are actually indeed have probably already got married by now, but do not despair. You will have an opportunity to sign their wedding registry afterwards and a chance to actually do a little activism to help their cause. But we'll tell you a little more about it and how you can actually get into the picture, literally. But without further ado, forget about me. Let's actually hear from some other people about their stories about saying I do. I'd like to invite here our host for the evening, a wonderful writer and speaker and someone who's a wonderful prefers champagne to beer. Please welcome Amy Klein.
So in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. How many people are familiar with that line? Okay, how many people? That's from the Bible. How many of you have heard stories from the Bible? Good, okay, so you know what storytelling is, right? Stories have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And tonight, you're going to hear from 5 storytellers. They're all going to be telling personal, true stories. And they are going to show a character difference is going to happen in each of the stories. We're going to have stories about love, about being gay, about religious differences, about happy marriage. But don't worry what the stories are about. Just listen to the stories, enjoy yourself, and maybe you will emerge from tonight a changed person. Our first storyteller tonight is going to be Ophira Eisenberg. She is as in her bio, she was selected as New York Magazine's top 10 comics, and she's also one of the MOTH's main hosts. You can see her Thursday night at the MOTH at the Housing Rec. Please welcome, big round of applause for Ophira Eisenberg.
Hello. Hi, everybody. So I moved here now 10 years ago from Canada, and I went through the whole New York dating scene. I always like to say that in Canada, I thought Sex and the City was a funny comedy show. And then I moved to New York and I realized it was a documentary. And I dated a lot of people all over the place, trying to figure it out. And I finally met this one guy, Jonathan, and we started to get very serious. It was really not going to work out because he was the first Jewish guy I had dated, even though I am Jewish. And I was the first Jewish girl he had dated, even though he was Jewish, so it certainly wasn't going to work out. But somehow we found ourselves getting more serious, and we were about to move in with each other. And I called my mother up on the phone, and I said, Jonathan and I are going to move in together. And she said, like my mother would say, she said, that's wonderful, but remember, you never know someone until you live with them. And I was like, oh my gosh. Because this idea that something was going to come out, something I didn't expect was going to come out, there was going to be some mystery, you know, he was such a great guy, the other shoe was going to drop, I didn't know what I was up for. So we're moving into our apartment, and it's a small New York apartment, 350 square feet, we are playing human Tetris. I'm like, you hold the lamp so I can go to the bathroom, it's insane, and we have to share a closet. There's nothing worse for a woman than sharing a closet with a guy. So closet space is at its premium. Everything he's moving in there, I'm questioning. And one thing he moves in is a big box that is taped shut. And I go, what's in that box? And he goes, you know, my stuff. And I'm like, what are you talking about? We're together now. You have no stuff. What is in that box? And he goes, listen, this is my stuff. It is for me to know and you not to know. Matter of fact, you are never allowed to look in that box. And then he says, And when the right time comes, you will find out. And he puts it in the closet. And now I am petrified of that box. I'm like, what? This is it. This is the other shoe that's going to drop. I'm like, what could it possibly be? What is he going to expose to me when the time is right? Like, is it going to be that finally there's all this trust in our relationship and he'll expose some, like, crazy porn? I don't think that's possible. Is it going to be old love letters to other girlfriends? Like, who cares about that? And my mind goes to this place where I'm like, what if I open up the box and I'll pull out something horrible? Like, I'll pull out the severed head of his ex-girlfriend. Which would be terrible, because I'd have to be like, oh my god, she's prettier than me. You know, I can't go through that. So, honest to God, I don't look in the box. I forget about the box. I don't want to deal with it. And, you know, they say ignorance is bliss, but also premeditated, pretend ignorance is just as happy. A couple of years pass. I was out in Lancaster, Pennsylvania to do a comedy show. Not exactly my people. And the show went terribly. It was a nightmare. I was not what they wanted. It was a mess. And if you perform and you do poorly at the end of the show, it is just you leave with this like sicking depression. You rethink your entire life. And I'd taken a bus down there. And if you walk on a bus, like a Peter Pan bus, in the best mood on the planet, by the end of the ride, you'll be braiding a noose from your own hair. But I was getting on this bus ride home from Lancaster. Anything a couple hours past the King of Prussia is a problem. But I was getting back on it, you know, just depressed, crestfallen. I didn't really know what to do with myself. You know, it was a bad show. I was rethinking my career. And Jonathan calls me up, very excited on the phone. I'm talking to him on the Peter Pan bus. I'm disheveled. I've got my hair in a scrunchie that I've saved from the late 80s. And he says, I want to do something special tonight. We should do something special tonight. Why don't we go out to this like new restaurant around the corner and have a great meal? And I'm like, absolutely not. I'm depressed. I feel a little sick. I'm on a bus. Like, I just want to go home and boil myself and then fall asleep. He's like, okay. Are you sure I can't change your mind? I'm like, absolutely not. I don't want to go out. He's like, okay, well, I'll make dinner. I'm like, really? Interesting. I pull into Port Authority, the second happiest place on the planet. Find my way on the F train home, the third happiest. And I walk into our apartment, and it is suspiciously clean. I'm like, what's going on here? And I sit down at our little fold-out table, and Jonathan has prepared dinner, and it's very nice. It's some salmon and some asparagus, and we're eating dinner, and I'm telling him about how horrible the gig was, and I'm sort of sniffly, I'm wiping my nose. And as we're finishing, I'm just wiping my asparagus through the last little bit of salmon juice, and he takes out a piece of origami paper and starts folding it. Now, that sounds very weird, but it's not super weird in my life, because Jonathan is into the ancient Japanese art of origami. Not the coolest hobby on the planet. But, you know, you can't get angry at someone for enjoying folding paper things and enjoying the Japanese art. Like, it's not like a rock star, but, like, you can't get angry at them. That's like being mad at someone for liking fennel. You know, you just have to go with it. So he's starting to fold this piece of paper, and he starts talking in a very presentational kind of announcer voice. Like the kind of thing where I'm like, is there an audience behind the couch? Like, why are you speaking so weird? And he's going on, he's like, you know, there are all these great legends about paper cranes in Japanese folklore. Like, if you give 1,000 cranes to someone who's sick, it will bring them health. Or if you give 1,000 cranes to someone who is down on their luck, it will bring them great fortune. And he says, but the one I like the best is if you give someone you love 1,000 cranes, your love will last forever. And he finishes folding into a crane, and he hands it to me, and he says, this is number 1,000. And I'm just confused. I look at it, I look at him, and I'm starting to do the math, like, actually this is 1. Like, what are you talking about? What's wrong with you? And then he points to the ground near the door, and there is that box from the closet. And he says, look inside. And I'm like, here we go. Severed head of his ex-girlfriend. She better not be blonde. And I open it up, and inside that box is 999 folded cranes of different colored papers, some out of napkins, some out of receipts. And he starts to explain to me that as an exercise in patience, because he has anxiety problems, he decided to start folding cranes, origami, very relaxing. And then he read about all these different things in Japanese folklore and decided he would fold 1,000 cranes and was doing it for years with the idea that by the time he got to 1,000 or 999, the love of his life would be standing before him. And there I was, sniffling with a scrunchie. Not exactly probably the romantic picture he envisioned, but there I was. And these cranes, I mean, I've never seen something so beautiful. 999 cranes, all different colors, all there. For me, I mean, it was incredible and also just a little creepy. Like a little creepy, you know, like one ladybug, adorable, but 1,000, like, you know, infestation trait to kill you. And also I was like, who does? I can't imagine someone doing this for me. It's amazing, but isn't that kind of OCD? Like, isn't that weird to like fold things over the years? Like maybe this guy's an axe murderer. And he interrupted my crazy thoughts and said, look in the middle of the box. And in the middle of the box was a little box. And in that little box was a ring. And he proposed to me. I wanted to say, can we first just count the cranes? But, I mean, if it was 850, wouldn't you be a little like, really? What if she comes along in another 145? But I said, of course, yes. Now, I was, and still am, Canadian. He's New York Jew. So we started the process of, we went to City Hall and got married. I bought a dress at Anthropology for the date. The same day I went to the girl, and when I bought the dress, and she said, I love this sundress, it's one of my favorites. I said, really? I'm about to get married in it. And she was like, oh my God, I hope it's not your first wedding. They trained them well. We got married at City Hall and then started to go through the green card process, which is very interesting because it doesn't matter how you feel and how your family embrace you and how you feel in America, the green card process will make you feel like you are A, a criminal, and B, you're not supposed to be here. And we finally got called in for that infamous interview where they look at all your stuff and decide if your marriage is real. And I was at this point, I was like, I know everything, like this is easy, we love each other, it's totally real, I mean there is a green card involved, but this is real. And we get into the room and all of a sudden you start questioning everything because they start asking these questions. I mean, 1 billion questions about yourself and your relationship. You're like, well, maybe I don't know you. Maybe I don't know you. What's going wrong? You know, and some of them are easy. You know, do you have a criminal record? We're both like, no, all happy. Yay, check mark. But it keeps going. And at one point, the guy says to me, I need a photo of you guys sharing a special event. Now, we have a photo book with us. We know exactly what we're doing. And Jonathan is very scared, and he goes to the photo album, and I go, get that one from when we were spending Hanukkah with my parents. And he's like, okay, yeah, right. And he's flipping through it, and I'm like, no, Jonathan, it's in the front of the album. He's like, no, it's in the middle of the album. I remember we put it together. I'm like, Jonathan, it's in the front of the album. And the guy, the immigration, the man who works for Homeland Security is sort of looking at us, and Jonathan's like, I know it's in the middle. I remember putting it together. I'm like, Jonathan, it's in the front. Just turn to the front. And finally, he goes, okay, I'm just going to turn to the front. And there is the picture. And at that moment, the immigration guy looked at us and went, yep, you're married. Stamp. Thank you.
Who says that all happy marriages are alike? I know the one thing that a lot of people in this audience are thinking right now is she married the first Jew that she went out with. Kill her. I was looking for some happy marriage quotes on the internet, and they're very hard to come by. I thought I'd just pepper them. So here's a happy quote from Henny Youngman. Do you know what it means to come home at night to a woman who will give you a little love, a little affection, a little tenderness? It means you're in the wrong house. That's what it means. Rita Rudner, I love being married. It's so great to find that one special person you want to annoy for the rest of your life. Speaking of annoying a person for the rest of your life, I want to introduce the next storyteller. Eyal Solomon is a professional jazz musician by night and an online marketing expert by day. This is his first time telling a story on stage, so let's give him a big round of applause.
There are no atheists in the foxholes, especially when you're talking about the foxhole of marriage. It's 1973. It's Israel. My aunt Chava is 23 years old. She's a hottie. She has long curly hair in bell-bottom jeans and tie-dye t-shirts, and she rode a red Vespa. And she used to have a transistor radio that was tuned always to Radio Luxembourg because she couldn't stand the Israeli army bands that played in the 60s and 70s. She wanted the Beatles and California Dreaming. Because you see, her parents came to Israel in 1951 from Baghdad, Iraq. And right away, she and my mom, her sister, and 4 other siblings, they tried their best to be the ultimate Sabra, tough and diaspora-free, and most of all, secular to a fault. So, in 1973, she met this strange, weird little guy, Yair. He had long hair and Buddy Holly glasses, and he was a self-proclaimed artist, the first artist I've ever met. He could draw a person's portrait in seconds, and most of all, he took pride in shocking my family with his erotic art. I remember one work of a collage of his ass, impressions of his ass in plaster, and that left a huge impression on me too. And so they got married, and I don't remember anything about their marriage. I was 6 probably, or 7, and it was probably a standard issue Israeli wedding. Orthodox rabbi, chuppah, the whole shebang. And after they got married, she got a job at the bank as a teller, and he started working in odd jobs. He was a handyman and a house painter, and he didn't like that kind of stuff. So at some point, he decided he wanted to be an interior designer. At that point, it was like maybe 4 years after the wedding, and they already had 2 kids. He didn't really succeed in that either because he thought most of the customers were idiots because they didn't appreciate his genius, of replacing sofas with bubble pods and stuff like that. So it didn't really work well, and needless to say, his career history was spotty, and money-wise, it didn't work very well, and didn't help the relationship. It started going south. Obviously, that's what happens. And their life became a constant fight, a constant struggle. They fought and fought and fought every day. And at that point, my Aunt Chava decided to do the only thing she knew in order to save their marriage. She had another child. Yeah, it didn't work either. My uncle, probably, he didn't really lift a finger, didn't do much, not really the kind to take care of the child. He was the only, this is also funny, he was an artist, but he was the only child from a Yemenite family from Kerem Teimanim, which is a slummy neighborhood in Tel Aviv, and not the kind to produce an artist. Anyway, the newborn daughter was a year old, and one night she started wheezing, and she couldn't breathe, and this went on for days and days and days and days, and the doctors didn't know what's wrong with her. So in her despair, my Aunt Chava took her to a rabbi to heal the child. And the rabbi told her that she misnamed the child. Now, my family was in shock. We didn't have this kind of quackery in my family. A rabbi? The rabbi told her she misnamed the child. The child's name was MOTH, incense in Hebrew. And he told her that the child was the reincarnation of Yair's grandmother, Margalit. So she changed the child's name from Mor to Margalit, Maggie, as we call her. And then she continued taking the child to doctors, and after 2 weeks, the child got better, and she got cured. Maggie, by the way, today is an aspiring rock musician in Israel. And the whole ordeal with Maggie and the rabbi and the doctors really empowered Chava to the point that she